Well,
Old lady with a stroke and
yeah.
various other ailments. She's pulled out of it quite well.
Did you see was stuck making it up as she went along?
Yeah.
John, am I?
I'm rolling.
Is my microphone? Does that seem to work? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, explain, Mr. Sparrow, Phil. You're non de plumes, or you have several different names that you've gone by, haven't you?
Yes, I've had a number of alter egos. I took the Phil Sparrow name from a 15th century poem by John Skelton called The Book of Philip Sparrow. It was supposedly written by a woman named Jane Scroop, who had a pet sparrow that used to eat the crumbs out of her cleavage. And he died, and she produced this long poem about him, which was really a kind of satire on the Catholic Church and its various formulas and routines. But Philip Sparrow seemed to me to be a nice name for a person who was poking around in the private parts of various people and decorating them and taking little nuggets of information, because I had Kinsey was worried when I gave up university teaching and began to be a tattoo artist. He said, "Oh, for God's sake, Sam, be careful." It's the only time I ever heard him give any kind of small criticism or caution to anyone engaged in any kind of activity whatever. But he knew that I was going down to South State Street in a bad neighborhood, and he knew the neighborhood too, because he'd already been interviewing people down there, the whores and the winos and such like, about their sex lives. So, however, I succumbed to his blandishments after a while. After I'd been doing it for about 2 months, he came to me and said, "We'd like to make use of you." And I said, "How could you make use of me any more than you already have?" And he said, "Well, I have never had time to go deeply into the matter of the sexual motivations behind tattooing, and I wish you'd keep a journal for us of any kind of information that you find." So I started the journal, which became about a 2 million word thing in 11 typed volumes or something like that, and found a great deal of information that he found very fascinating, because he said he had never come across anything like that before. We had planned, he suggested a monograph, but then happily he died before he got around to it, and that never materialized. But all of the tattoo journal that I wrote for him is down at the archive in Bloomington, Indiana.
Your given name is what?
Samuel Steward, S-T-E-W-A-R-D. But I started with Phil Sparrow, and that seemed to start off a whole bird class of tattoo artists. There was Clifford Raven. Raven wasn't his real name either. It was Ingram, but he seemed to find that was Raven in Old High German, I guess, or something like that, or Norwegian. So he took Raven, and then there was a Paul Parrott in New York, and there was also, well, a couple of other birds, I don't know. Oh, a Pete Swallow, and it grew into a kind of bird fraternity there in the 50s for a while.
You were a PhD, is that correct?
Yes, in English literature.
And where did you teach?
Well, I'd been teaching in Chicago universities for 20 years, and discovered that every year's class was a little dumber than the preceding year. So when I finally found a class in which not a single one of the entering students, boys or girls, had ever heard of Homer. But at the same time, I asked, how many of you can change a spark plug? Some 30 hands went up, both girls and boys. So I decided maybe that higher education was a failure, and I'd better get into something that was not quite so such a failure. But it certainly shocked all my colleagues when I went into tattooing. I overlapped that with my university teaching for 2 years, and that created a certain number of fascinating encounters and evasions and so on. But I managed to keep the secret. However, on the day when my weekly take from tattooing equaled my monthly salary in teaching, I resigned.
What year was that?
I think it was 1954. It may have been 1956, but at any rate, I started tattooing around 1954. And I think there was an overlap of 2 years. It may have been that I started as early as 1952. I wasn't keeping a journal at that time. And I have no record of it except my memory, which inclines to be a little faulty when you're 102.
Did you start with machine or did you do hand tattooing?
Yes, I started with machines. I bought a footlocker from an old wino circus tattoo artist who was giving up on the business. And he had a lot of acetate stencils and some machines that were so heavily caked with old paint, about 1/2 to an inch thick, that I never did get some of them cleaned up. And didn't know much about it at the time. I bought a correspondence course in tattooing from an operator who was out of Rockford, Illinois, and paid an outlandish price for it and learned absolutely nothing, because trying to learn tattooing from a correspondence course is sort of like trying to learn swimming from a book in your living room. So I took a few bucks, 40 to be exact, a couple of 20s. In those days that was a fairly princely sum, up to old Amon Dietzel in Milwaukee, and plunked them down in front of him, and his eyes just lighted up, because they always did when he saw $40 at once, and said, "I'd like to ask you a few questions about tattooing." So he talked to me for 2 hours straight, and I learned more in that 2 hours, of course, than I had in all the correspondence lessons. And we were good friends from then on. He sold me some good machines and helped me find the best colors and so forth.
So that was the extent of your formal education in
Yes,
tattooing?
as a tattoo artist, yeah.
And the rest was practice?
Yes. We used to hire the winos. My shop on South State Street in that the Skid Row, well, it was the highest rated of the Skid Rows in Chicago. The worst was West Madison. The second worst was Clark Street. And the very top of the list was South State Street. So that was down there beside the Pacific Garden Mission, which was a religious mission where old Billy Sunday had been converted. And I started in an arcade right beside it. Well, I've forgotten what your question was now.
Oh, working of folks in...
Oh, yes, yeah, that's right. So I would hire a wino. Of course, one of the myths about tattooing is that you should start out on grapefruit or potatoes or something like that. It's nonsense. You could hire a wino for $1 and say, "Do you want a tattoo?" And of course, they were delighted, because then they had a tattoo of their choice and a jug of wine for the day. So there was plenty of flesh around to practice on in those first days of tattooing.
Did you practice on yourself?
Yes, I put on a couple on myself. I put on one on my ankle, and it hurt so much right on the ankle bone that I went to Dietzel. It was convenient to put my ankle up on my knee and work on it. I went to Dietzel and said, "My God, I think I'm in the wrong profession. It hurts that much." And he laughed and whacked his thigh and spat in his wastebasket and said, "Didn't you know that the ankle is one of the 3 most sensitive spots on the human body?" And I said, "I know it now."
What are the other 2?
Well, the ribs is one, and the genitals area is another.
Poland is kind of
Okay. German name.
No, he was Norwegian, Scandinavian. I think it was Norwegian. But he was rather elderly even by then. Well, he was, let's see, 77 in 1968, whatever that would make him. I just found his birthday on an old calendar that I had the other day. No one seems to have been able to find out when he died. But let's see. Well, you can figure it out. I can't do it in my head, since my brain is rotted after they invented the little handheld calculators. It's difficult to add 2 and 2 anymore.
Are you up to speed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just finish about the 3 more painful areas in the body. I wanted to ask you about the elbow and
Yeah, well, no, the elbow seems to have been fairly impervious to, well, not one of the really sensitive areas. A lot of people got the spider web on their elbows, and they stood it very well.
So,
But the ribs would make anybody faint, almost anybody. The underside of the genital shaft is much less painful than the top. For some reason, I don't know why, on most people.
so you practiced a bit on people that you hired to get tattooed there
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah.
How long did you practice in Chicago before you moved to the West?
Well, I was in Chicago from 1952 until 1963, when they changed the law in Illinois. They made, up to that point, 18 had been the minimum age for tattoos, and then they made it 21. So that cut out all the boot sailors from Great Lakes Naval Academy, which was just to the north of Chicago. And as a result, it cut down the clientele considerably. And anyway, I had decided a little earlier than that even that it would be nice to move to the West Coast. So I went up to Milwaukee for a year with Cliff Raven, whom I also started on the Primrose Path. And we tattooed on weekends up in Milwaukee after asking Dietzel's permission. And he said, oh no, he didn't mind. He'd taken out over $500,000 from that area already, he said. And he said, the boys will know where to come if they want a good tattoo. He didn't have many illusions about his modesty.
Were there any women getting tattooed then?
Not very many. A few whores came in, and once in a while a farm wife. There had been on early TV a short story of some kind, I never saw it, in which the woman had a small butterfly tattooed on her shoulder. Well, the farm wives that came in from downstate Illinois wanting a small butterfly on their shoulder was just fantastic after that. We had as much problem with that as we did with the Marlboro man and his tattoo on the back of his hand. An ethical tattoo artist, I felt, never would tattoo anything on the hands or face. That's since changed, of course, but I never did put any tattoos on the hands because I know that anyone who met the public would be likely fired if he got a tattoo on his hand. But the ladies came in, a few Trollops wanting some memorial statement around there.
Come to you in Chicago? I mean, did he work with you there or just in Milwaukee?
No, Cliff was allied with the Chris Studio in that time, and they did not start to tattoo, or Cliff didn't, until I decided.
Which studio? The Christie?
No, the Cliff Raven.
Uh-huh.
His
And,
enterprise.
well, okay.
Then they went down to, or Cliff Raven went down to Champaign and tattooed, there was an Air Force base down in southern Illinois. What was the name of it? I've forgotten now, but it was a large Air Force base.
Well,
Right
does
south
this
of
precede your tattooing together in Milwaukee?
Chicago. I took a year off and wrote a little. And then we decided that we would go up to Milwaukee for a year, and did that for a year in 1964, 3 and 4. And then they tore down our quarters there. We were all victims of parking lots, really. They tore down my place in Chicago and built a parking lot, and they tore down the hotel in Milwaukee and made another parking lot. So when they did that, I moved out to the West Coast, and Cliff returned to Chicago and set up a shop on the far north side around Belmont, where he began to be successful with tattooing there. Tattooing older people, above 21.
Did you come to Oakland when you moved from?
No, I came right to here, but there's no tattooing in Berkeley, or there wasn't then in that year. And I came to Oakland. But I was tricked out of San Francisco by a devious mechanic over there.
You don't want to name names, apparently.
Oh, I don't know. What's going to happen to this tape? Is it going to go places?
Well, if the person is still operating, then let's just...
Yeah, I'll skip it.
Yes.
We gotta go back to the Trollops anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I hear the rest
Yeah.
of the story.
Well, one streetwalker came in once and wanted a swallowtail butterfly put down around her thing, her celestial gate. And, you know, you have to tauten the skin in order to get the needle in. Yeah? And down there was nothing to grab. You couldn't grab around, and pull the skin tight. And when you pulled down with your thumb, why, it slipped up and so on. So finally I said, well, you'll just have to excuse me. And I stuck 2 fingers in and pushed out, and it just tautened the skin real nicely. So we got the swallowtail butterfly on her, all right. But there were all kinds of little mottos which they would put around the arch, the pubic arch, and the mons veneris. It was
Like what?
like pay as you enter, and things like that. Not very
Abandon hope, all
original.
you.
Yes, abandon hope, all ye, and so on.
So you did not end up tattooing in San Francisco.
No.
Where was your shop in Oakland?
At 1727 San Pablo, between 17th and 18th. Not the best neighborhood in the world. I tattooed there for 5 years. It was not nearly as busy as it had been in Chicago, because the sailors out here were older, of course, and they had all the tattoos they wanted, for the most part. And the leather movement hadn't really taken hold yet. There were no leather boys coming in to get tattooed. The Hells Angels did find me, however, and you had to walk a very fine line with those boys. But I did their colors for them. That is to say, the skull with wings, fairly cheaply, and did a good enough job that pleased them. using fine line needles. And so I became, for a number of years there, the semi-official tattoo artist of the Hells Angels. I tattooed Sonny Barger and all the others who are now in the pokey, alas, languishing. On the inside of Sonny Barger's right forearm, I once put a long literary quotation, just amazing. I've forgotten now, if indeed I ever did know the author of it, but it started out something like, "I had rather die yearning." I think it may have been from Khalil Gibran, but I'm not certain. It was certainly one of the oddest things that you would associate with the Hells Angels, at any rate. But I had a lot of anti-establishment work on them. One of the favorite tattoos was a motorcyclist's boot stepping down on a cop's cap and crushing it, with red flames going out and the blue cap being.
When did you meet Don Ed Hardy?
Well, sometime between 1965 and 1970, because I stopped tattooing in Oakland in 1970. And the little piece of artwork that he gave me after he graduated from art school was dated in July 1967. So it was around the beginning of 67, I should imagine, or probably through 1970 then, from then on. He was over, not every day during that time, but sometimes it seemed like every day. He was a fresh-faced, cheery, smiling little boy, and he looked like a cherub, really, and I thought, my God, the tattoo world and the tattoo jungle is going to eat him alive if he gets into it. So I tried to caution him against some of the pitfalls of the cutthroat competition that he'd come up against, and so on. And he was really fascinated with the idea of tattooing, as most of us were, I think, at the beginning. It takes you over body and soul, and you can hardly think of anything else. You dream tattooing. You wake up in the morning thinking about tattooing. He made several tentative boards of flash. He brought one of them over, and I put it up amongst my flash for a long time. The early flashes that he did gave an indication, I think, of the elaborate and beautiful work that he's now doing, because they were complicated, a little too complicated for the taste of the late 60s. Well, yes, because the hippies were not yet getting very many tattoos, just a few now and then. And of course the rock world had not yet begun to get tattooed. So the flashboard that he put up was not extraordinarily popular and not chosen very often, because, as I say, those designs were too elaborate for the imagination of the poor guys that came in for tattoos. You would find that, of course, the scene has changed completely now, but in those early years when I was tattooing, a person would come into the shop and say, "I would like to have an original tattoo, something that really means something to me." And I would say, "Yes, well, what's the nature of your interest?" and so on. "Well, just something original." So I would draw something that I thought was original. "Oh, no, I don't like that. It doesn't do anything for me." And they would all end up, of course, picking one of the standard designs from the board, because they didn't have any ideas what they wanted. I'm sorry to seem to be putting down the early customers I had in tattooing, Well, it's perfectly true. They were not the greatest brains in the world. And if you found somebody who had designed his own or wanted anything unusual and told you exactly what he wanted, well, you were only too happy to design it for him and put it on him. But for the most part, it was just slap on the old stuff and collect your money and get out, say goodbye.
Would it be correct then to assume that you feel that today's era is more of a renaissance than when you were practicing?
Oh, absolutely. The work that's being done today, especially by people like Ed Hardy, is superb and superior. It beats anything that was being done in those early years, in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s. It's really elaborate. It's colorful. It holds up better. The colors are better, and on the whole, it's become an art form, really, I think, instead of just a craftsman's, artisan's form.
Were you familiar with Sailor Jerry in the 60s?
Oh, no, I had seen a lot of his work, but I didn't know him. The one in Hawaii, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. No, his work was easily identifiable, and we did see a lot of it, especially on the sailors as they were coming back to.
Was he doing larger pieces then?
He was doing, I think, yes, I think he was.
Going back to Ed and his coming over to you, did you tattoo Ed?
No, did I or not? I don't remember. I would have to ask him. I'm sorry. Whether he got anything or not from me, I don't believe that he. I don't remember.
What about equipment? Did you ever?
Yes,
loan
we
him
talked a lot
machine?
about equipment and machines and so on, and I gave him all the information that I had about colors and what were the good colors and what were dangerous ones. Cautioned him about yellow and red, which always were problems in those days. The red was mercuric sulfide, and of course it was an allergen for many people. It bubbled up, and the yellow reacted also to sunlight, being a cadmium color, and that caused a great deal of distress to certain people who, well, yellow was almost universally a bad color until we found a new yellow that did not react to sunlight. But red, sometimes with certain allergic cases, bubbled up and caused a great deal of distress. So we used the best colors that were available then, and I did what I could to set him on the path about colors and needles and soldering and unsoldering and all of the little technicalities.
What about sanitation when you were? Did you have an autoclave?
Yes, I had an autoclave, and was one of the few people who used it. I have seen autoclaves that were used as storage bins for cigarettes and all kinds of crap and never turned on, but they were there for show. And in this area too. So there was not any or much attention paid to the rigors of sanitation in those days. Today, of course, I think it's a great hazard for people, with both the tattoo artist and the tattooee, with AIDS going around so much.
And Chuck is very, very outgoing and
Yeah, he's a nice person.
yeah, very, very much so.
Well, you can't very well be an introspective tattoo artist. It just doesn't work.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you about the sort of the tattoo scene